Hey there! Back with another article! Also, I just got new glasses. I was able to finally replace my old pair that was broken, so I'm just so happy to have the gift of sight. And I'm here with another article. It's pretty short, but I think it has a lot of really good information, and so let's get started. The article is titled Camouflaging in Autism Spectrum Disorder, Examining the Roles of Sex, Gender Identity, and Diagnostic Timing. It was written by Goldie A. McQuaid, Nancy Rachel Lee, and Gregory L. Wallace in the year 2022. The abstract states, camouflaging in autism spectrum disorder could be a factor in later diagnosis of individuals without co-occurring intellectual disability, particularly among those designated female sex at birth. Little research to date has examined how gender identity impacts camouflaging. Further, no study has compared groups that differ in diagnostic timing to directly investigate if later diagnosed individuals demonstrate elevated camouflaging relative to those receiving an earlier diagnosis. Using the Camouflaging Autistic Traits Questionnaire subscales, we investigated the rules of sex, gender identity, gender diverse versus cisgender, and diagnostic timing, childhood/adolescent diagnosis versus adult diagnosed, and the interactions of these factors in autistic adults. Main effects of sex, gender identity, and diagnostic timing were revealed. Autistic females reported more camouflaging across Camouflaging Autistic Traits Questionnaire subscales compared to males. Gender-diverse adults reported elevated camouflaging on the compensation subscale compared to cisgender adults. Adulthood-diagnosed individuals reported elevated assimilation and compensation compared to childhood/adolescence diagnosed individuals. We discussed how aspects of camouflaging may have particular implications for later diagnosed timing and for the interaction of neurodiversity and gender diversity. For some background information, the article states that camouflaging refers to a repertoire of behaviors and/or strategies that mask the perception of ASD features in social contexts in order to appear more neurotypical. Camouflaging modifies the behavioral presentation of core ASD features, such as social and communication differences, but the underlying ASD profile is unaffected, generating a mismatch between external observable features and the internal lived experience of ASD. I thought this line was really important because I think that a really big misconception is that masking cures autism, that if you just act normal, if you just do the things that society wants you to do, that you'll be fine. But in reality, the mismatch that this article talks about causes a lot of cognitive dissonance and a lot of internal discomfort, and continues to talk about a lot of different negative effects when it comes to camouflaging. Particularly strong evidence that sex designated at birth plays a role. Although both autistic males and females camouflage, those designated female sex at birth demonstrate elevated camouflaging in relative to autistic males. So basically it's talking about how girls typically mask more than boys. The reason why this research is important is because autistic adults with non-binary gender expression also demonstrated camouflaging, although these adults did not significantly differ in comparison to autistic cisgender females or males respectively. Missed and late diagnosis in ASD, particularly for autistic females without co-occurring intellectual disability, has been attributed in part to camouflaging. This part is super important, and it really impacted me because elevated camouflaging is associated with greater internalizing symptomatology and suicidality. Further, autistic women report elevated depression and a reversal of sex-based suicide rates in the general population, greater risk of completed suicide relative to autistic men. Not only are autistic females not talking about how they feel, they're internalizing their symptoms, they're at a higher risk of depression, and also they have a higher likelihood of actually completing suicide attempts. Those are the negative risks associated with camouflaging. The general purpose of the study is to advance our understanding of camouflaging. The current study hypothesized that A, autistic females will show increased camouflaging compared to autistic males, replicating prior work. B, gender-diverse autistic adults will report elevated camouflaging as compared to cisgender autistic adults. And C, adult-diagnosed autistic individuals will exhibit elevated camouflaging compared to those diagnosed in childhood and adolescence. Further, we assessed D, possible interacting effects between ASD diagnostic timing and either sex designated at birth or gender identity or camouflaging. If you hear my boyfriend in the back, he's playing games. For participants, the study included autistic adults between the ages of 18 to 49 years old, and of the 665 adults who entered the study, 595 participants completed all measures used in analysis reported. To be part of the study, community-based professional diagnosis of ASD was required for inclusion in the current analysis. Some of the measures included Camouflaging Autistic Traits Questionnaire, Autism Spectrum Quotient, social demographics data was collected including age of ASD diagnosis, gender identity such as female, male, trans male, gender nonconforming, gender queer, and another gender identity, and sex designated at birth. To examine associations between ASD diagnostic timing and camouflaging, participants were grouped into those who received an ASD diagnosis during childhood/adolescence, so before the age of 18, and versus those who received a diagnosis in adulthood after the age of 18. Look at this beautiful data. Lovely data. Look at this lovely data. Very nice. So the findings of this study show that autistic females did report higher levels of camouflaging across all three CAT-Q subscales compared to autistic males. Also, gender-diverse autistic adults endorsed more CAT-Q compensation behaviors compared to cisgender autistic adults. Additionally, adult-diagnosed individuals reported more CAT-Q compensation and assimilation. Camouflaging may have unique implications for those designated female at birth and gender-diverse individuals. For both groups, gender stereotypes may exert a particular influence on gendered performance. The CAT-Q compensation scale discusses modeling the social behaviors of others, either in real time, such as copying the gestures or phrases of an interlocutor, or through rehearsal, such as trying on facial expressions in the mirror. The compensation subscale in particular may indirectly reflect awareness of social norms and motivation to conform to those norms in order to be socially successful. For instance, compensation includes identification and close study of real-life or fictional characters, such as from books, TV, or other media, deemed to be socially acceptable. Through induction, autistic individuals may move from these exemplars to emulate patterns of social behavior and craft a persona that is gauged to have a high chance of social success. I think that makes a lot of sense because, to begin with, obviously, when it comes to early diagnosis and early intervention, those things can help with mitigating the negative effects of masking. In early intervention, clients are taught alternative forms of behavior, safer forms of behavior, different things that they're able to do besides like the maladaptive coping skills. That helps reduce the likelihood of them masking in the future because they're not trying to do things that they don't want to do. There's just other ways of doing it. I feel like this article also points to the fact that early diagnosis and early intervention can help reduce the likelihood of masking in adulthood. Specifically when it comes to gender stereotypes, I think it shows that gender stereotypes impacts everyone, but specifically it seems to impact autistic women and queer individuals more acutely. Furthermore, it seems that obviously through survival, through wanting to have friends, they're able to recognize the socially acceptable ways of being to try to do it, and if they're successful, of course they're going to continue doing it. And taking on socially preferable characteristic and traits, like literal character traits, to be socially accepted makes so much sense because it helps make friends, get invited to social events, compliments, opportunity, general safety against bullying. So of course, individuals who may have more difficult time communicating and making friends may lean on the different behaviors / characteristics that come from TV characters or book characters because it helps them be socially accepted in real life. That is just another part of masking / camouflaging. It goes on to say that it points to the effort for construction and enactment of a persona that gives one's social audience the impression of neurotypicality. So I feel like that's what I was just saying. One of the limitations of the study was that self-reported measures were used. And finally, the results reported here are consistent with the hypothesis that camouflaging contributes to later diagnosis. However, it is critical to note that the cross-sectional nature of the data reported on here cannot provide evidence regarding whether or to what degree camouflaging in fact contributes to the later diagnosis. What it's saying is that the questionnaires used in the study are just not validated in the sense that it cannot directly point to the fact of whether or not camouflaging contributes to later diagnosis. But I think it does. Autistic, gender diverse individuals, including transgender autistic individuals, are in general at greater risk for anxiety, depression, and suicidality. Thus, it is critical to understand how camouflaging, conceptualized within the context of environmental drivers, including stigma associated with autism and other minority identities, including gender minority identities, may interact to impact mental health. Exactly. Super sweet, to the point. I thought that was a really good article, and thank you so much for listening. Bye!